Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our CentreCharge 5 Best Bill Run Practice webinar. You'll see on the screen that there is a CentreCharge 5 database in front of you, and on the right-hand side of your screen, there will be a panel. From that panel, you will be able to ask me any questions that you do have by either raising your hand or typing in the question. Can you all raise your hand for me so that I know that you've been able to hear and understand what I've said? Okay, brilliant. There's a couple of people that still haven't raised their hands. Could I ask you to just raise your hand just so that I can know that you can actually hear me? Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so if you do have any questions for me throughout the webinar, you can either raise your hand and I will be able to answer the question, or if you want to manually type the question in, I will also be able to see that for you as well. Okay, so this webinar is going to cover the CentreCharge 5 Best Bill Run Practices. As I know all of you obviously use CentreCharge 5. Hopefully this will give you a hand in making sure that your bill runs are correct each month. Okay, the first section that we're going to cover is your pre-bill run checks. I'm going to go through each of these stage by stage. The first pre-bill run checks we advise users to complete is to make sure that all clients have an account ID assigned against their account. So to check this, click on Accounts, and then if you click on the Account ID column header once, this will then put all of your clients via account ID order, so that you can see then if any accounts do not have an account ID, and then you can go into that account and add their account ID. So if I click on my column header here, I can see that all of my client accounts have an account ID. So this is what we want to see. So if you do have any account IDs any accounts without an account ID, you can just click into their account from here and then input that into the Financial Data tab. Okay. Once you're happy that everything's correct with that check, the next thing we'd ask you to do is to click on to make sure that all of your items have a revenue account code. Okay, to check this, you need to go to Configuration and Items, and then simply click on the revenue account column header once, and then that will pop those in order. And then from here, you can check to make sure each item has a revenue account code. If an item does not have a revenue account code, you can simply enter that in the item setup by double-clicking to open the item. I do see we have a raised hand here. Do you have any questions? If you have just forgotten to put your hand down, please put it down now. If you do have a question for me, then just keep your hand raised. Liz, hi. Do you have a question for me?
No.
Your hand's raised on our webinar. I was just wondering if you had a question.
It's got the arrow down. Lower hand.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, darling. Sorry.
No problem at all.
Sorry.
No worries. If you do have a question, just raise your hand and I'll be able to answer that for you.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. No problem. Okay, so once you're happy that all of your items do have a revenue account code in them, the next check that you need to make is on the orders themselves. So to check these, if you go into Orders and then Rent, and then you need to click on the Next Date column header once. This will then order the column by date order. So if we do that, and you can see that they go in date order there. What you need to remember when checking these next dates is that all orders cannot be transferred until the next date has been reached or passed. So, for example, if you have a future next date for October, then that order will not be picked up in your bill run. So you need to make sure that your next dates have either been passed or they are today's date. Okay. Again, if there's any that you think, oh, actually, no, that should be billed today and it is in the future, you can obviously just go into the double-click to open the order up and then change that next date to make it correct so that it will be picked up in the bill run. So once you scroll through those and make sure that all of those next dates are correct, you need to go through and make exactly the same check for the contract services. Now, to do that, go to Orders and Contract Services, and then just click the next date column header, exactly the same as we did in the rent. Okay, so again, making sure that all next dates are correct. They've had a next date that's been passed or is today's date. And again, if you need to make any amendments to make sure that the client is going to be billed, you can just double click into the order and amend the next date within there. Once you're happy that all of those checks have been made and all the orders are correct and ready to be billed, the next thing you need to check is the charge sheet. So to do that, you can either click on the charge sheets icon here, or you can go to Orders and Charge Sheets. Okay, then what you need to do from here is to click on reference, the reference date column here. These will put these in the charge date order, as it were. So that will put those in date order. You need to scroll down this column to check that the date range of all the charge sheets cover. So that if you're going to bill for August, for example, that all the charge sheets are dated August. If not, then there is a possibility that they may be missed out in billing. So you need to make a note, just check and make a note of the earliest and latest dates of those charge sheets. So, for example, we've got one here, the 21st of January, 2009. So we need to make a note that that is the first charge sheet that we are going to bill for. Okay, and then the latest one again is the 17th of November 2010. So I've just made a note of that here. If any of these dates are incorrect, you can either edit them and edit the date, or you can delete the charge sheet if it's not required. So if you've got any discrepancies there, now is the time to make sure that you amend the dates or you delete them if they're not going to be used. Another thing to check is that there are no zero values. Now, if there is a zero value, then there is a possibility that it may not be picked up within your bill run. So you can see here that we've got a couple that have a zero value, and you can see that they are actually in italic. So we've got three here which are a zero value. So you need to make sure that we enter a value into those three, or if we're not going to use them or we don't want it to show on their bill, we can delete them. Otherwise, they will not be picked up in the billing. So if I just open that charge sheet, I'm just going to pop a price in there. So okay, and then for example, if For Work Solutions didn't want that, it isn't going to have that charge sheet put in their bill, then we can just delete that charge sheet out. And the same with this client here, so I'm just going to delete those because there's a zero value. Okay, so once you're happy that all of the charge sheets have the correct date on them and there are no zero values, you can then go on to the next pre-bill run stage, which is to check on your batch sheets. So you can either do that, we can do that by clicking on the batch sheet icon here, and you can see that you've got multiple batch sheets within the batch sheets here. Again, clicking on the batch date column will put those in date order for you. Then what you need to check here is, again, the date, so the earliest date of the batches that you want to bill and the latest. So I'm going to mark that down here, so the 23rd of the 7th and the 17th of the 6th, 2011. Okay, another thing to make sure here is that there are no zero values within any of these batch sheets, and because that can stop the whole batch from being transferred and billed. So you need to do this, you need to go into each batch sheet and click on the unit price column header, and then you can check to see if there are any zero values on the batch sheet. If there are zero values on the batch sheet, then it would be my recommendation to remove those out of the batch sheet to avoid the batch sheet from being left behind in the bill run. If you do want to delete one off, you can just highlight the line here and then just click on delete. The next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that all of the batch sheets you want to transfer are completed and approved. Otherwise, again, if they're not completed and approved, then they will not be picked up in the billing. So you can see here that we've got quite a few that haven't been completed and approved, and then we've got 5 down the bottom which have been. So those 5 down the bottom which have been completed and approved will be picked up within the bill run, and the others will not be. So again, if you know, oh dear, yeah, that should be picked up in the bill run, you can just either highlight and click on complete and approve here, or you can edit the batch and tick them as completed and approved. So once you've been in, check to make sure that you've got no zero values on any of your batch sheets, and that all the batch sheets you want to transfer in the bill run are completed and approved. You need to go and check, the last check before the actual bill run itself is to go and check your reservations. Okay, so to do that, click on the reservations icon, and then click on list view. I'm going to show all my reservations. Click on the invoiced header here. So what that will do is that will put the invoiced reservations at the top, and then if you scroll down, you'll see you've got your uninvoiced reservations down here. Now, the thing to remember with this is that all reservations that you would like to be picked up in the bill run need to be confirmed. So you can check this by looking at the status column header here. If they are provisional, then they will not be picked up in the bill run. If they are confirmed, then they will be. So if we scroll down here, let's see. Make sure we've got some. Okay, so we have got some confirmed reservations in there that haven't been invoiced, so they will go through into the bill run and be picked up. So once we've checked to make sure that all reservations are marked as confirmed and not invoiced, all the batch sheets are completed and approved with no zero values, all charge sheets are entered with the correct dates on them and no zero values, all the next dates on the contract services are correct, then we are able to go and actually go through the bill run itself. To do that, go to Invoices, Bill Run. You can either, if you're just doing the bill run for one site, then you can click on the site that you wish to do the bill run for, or alternatively, if you are doing the bill run for all sites, then you'll need to click on all sites. I'm going to do the bill run for all sites here, so I'm going to click on all sites. And this will then load what we call the bill run wizard, which will take you through stage by stage in order to be able to generate those invoices. This is the first page of the bill run, so obviously nothing to do here. Click on next. This is the selection page. So this is where you select what you want to be able to transfer onto the invoices. So I'm going to I'm going to say yes to charge sheets, I'm going to say yes to batch sheets and reservations, and yes to contract services and rent. Obviously, if you didn't want to say yes to some of those, then you can just alternatively just put no. So you can mix and match if you want to do, if you do more than one bill run, you know, one for your services and your ad hoc charges, and then later in the month another one for your rent, you can just click on yes and no depending on what you want to bill for. So I'm going to leave all those as yes. Once you're happy that you've selected the right criteria, you can then click on next again. This will take you through the different charge sheet selection pages. Okay, so from here you can select the charge sheet, the date of the charge sheets that you want to bill for. So I'm going to do up until now. So I'm going to find that. That's there. I'm going to choose up until now. So what this will do is this will bring through all charge sheets that have not been invoiced up until now. This is a good one to, you know, you keep on up until now, because that means that if you've accidentally missed charges in the previous bill run, then they will be picked up in this one. So it's quite handy to keep this up until now selection ticked. If not, and you just want to do them for last month, then you can just use the drop down to click on the last month, or alternatively you can use the date selection boxes here. I'm going to click on up until now. Then if you want to check to make sure all your clients are going to be pulled through, and which clients are and which clients aren't, then you can click on the little drop down here, and then you will see which clients are set to be pulled through from their charge sheet. Once you're happy that you've got the correct date selection and all your clients are going to be pulled through, You click on Next, and this is where you select the date of the batch sheet that you want to transfer. This is very similar to the charge sheet, so you can either do it from last month or you can do it up until now to make sure that any charges that you've billed have been pulled through. So I'm going to click on up until now again. So I'm going to bring through all of those batches, and then down here you'll see a drop down, and you can see that which batch numbers will be pulled through. If you're happy that again everything everything looks like it's going to come through, then you click on Next, and from here we can select our contract services. Now you'll see you've got your available contract services and then a column with your selected contract services. The left-hand window shows all contract services that are available to be transferred. These are the contract services whose next transfer date is either previous or the same date as the up-to date down here. This automatically defaults to today's date. However, if you want to carry out a bill run in advance, so rather than you're doing it up until today's date, you're going to be doing it up until the end of October, then you can just amend this up until date here. On changing the date, you may see contract services, more contract services become available to transfer onto the invoices. If you think, some of those clients, oh, I'm not sure that they should be in here, and you just want to, pick and choose which ones you want to pull through and actually select them, you can just highlight them and then use the single arrow there to move them across into the selected window. If you're happy that all of those clients are correct, then you can just click on the double arrow, which will then move all contract services into the selected box. Just a point here, all contract services need to be selected in order to be billed. If you do not move them from the available box into the selected box, then none of those contract services will be billed. So you do need to make sure that you move the contract services that you wish to bill from the available box into the selected box using the arrows here. Again, if there are some here that you think, oh, shouldn't be in there, you can move those back into available and they will not be billed. Okay, so once again, we've moved all our contract services across, so that's fine. So we're going to click on Next, and the rent is the same as the contract services. You need to make sure that the up-to date is correct, that the correct clients are being pulled through, and you need to make sure that you move them from the available window into the selected window, which we're going to do now. So that's been moved across. Click on Next, and then you'll see this is the final part of the bill run. So once you've reached this window, you must check that you don't have any warning messages appear. If you do have some warning messages, then that will say, if you've got, for instance, there's a batch sheet with a 0 value, and it will have the number, that warning message will mean that that batch sheet will not be transferred. So from then, you'd need to either cancel the bill run and make sure that the batch sheet is, you delete that 0 charge off there, or you can carry on and then do a separate bill run later on when you've amended the batch sheet. Completely your choice. If you think, oh my God, I've got quite a lot of warning messages, contract services haven't been transferred or rental haven't been transferred, you can go back through the wizard to the stage which the warning messages come from. At this point, no charges have been transferred, so if you wanted to double check everything, you can just go next and back until you're completely confident that everything is correct and ready for billing. From here, I would suggest that you do tick the display unprinted invoices after transfer. What this will do is this will just load all of the unprinted invoices that you've created on the screen as soon as you click on Finish. Obviously, if you'd rather they weren't loaded straight on the screen, you don't have to tick that box, and the invoices will just go straight into unprinted for you to be able to view later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tick display unprinted invoices after transfer and then click on Finish. Okay, so this is the clicking on Finish will then generate the invoices. So this is the stage where the invoices are generated. You can see we've got a progress bar saying we're transferring charge sheet. I think we've got quite a lot to transfer, so transferring batch sheet. So it gives you an activity and it will just let you know how far through the process the bill run is currently. While this is transferring, does anybody have any questions for me? You can either raise your hand or type it. No one's raised their hand or raised a question. That's fine, no problem. I'll carry on then. What we've got here, as you can see on the screen, we've got a warning message saying that some of these clients do not have the option to either print or email invoices. This is the option within the financial data tab that you can see. You've got a print invoices or an email invoices tick box within the financial data tab of the account. This is just letting me know these clients don't have either option ticked. So for when we actually produce and print the invoices out, the system won't know necessarily what to do with those. So I'm just going to click on OK and acknowledge that message. And you can see here that our invoices have been raised. Okay, you can see we've got multiple invoices down there, and then down on the left-hand preview pane, and you can see by clicking on the various different invoices, you will see the preview label, the preview of the invoice on your screen. Okay, again, if you didn't click on preview display unprinted invoices after transfer, if you go into invoices and unprinted invoices, then all of the invoices are there for you as well. So if they don't come up on the screen, they are there. Don't panic, they are there. They're just stored under unprinted. Okay, so now we've actually done the bill run. Before we actually produce and actually issue those invoices to the client, we've got a couple of post-bill run checks that we need to make. Okay, one of these is to make sure that your orders are now showing correctly now that we've billed them. So if you go into orders and then rent, and then click on the next date column, you will see here that our next dates have actually moved on a month. So you should, when you click on that next date column header, you should notice that all next dates should have been moved on depending on their schedule. Obviously, if they're annually, then they, for example, this one, it would move on a year, but for most of them, they'll be monthly and they'll just move on a month. Okay, so if they haven't, and you think, oh, why hasn't that one moved across? It's probably because it hasn't been billed, and then you can just go into that order and then have a look as to why that order hasn't actually been transferred. Could be that there's an end date in the agreement, in the order, or something like that. Check those through, and same as the contract services, go to orders and contract services, click on the next date, make sure that they've all moved on a month as well, which in this case they have done so. Once you're happy that they've all moved on a month or they've all moved on as per their schedule, the next thing you should check is the contract services, sorry, the charge sheet. So to do that, click on the charge sheet icon, and if everything has been successfully transferred, there will be no charge sheets within the charge sheets option. If there are charge sheets left and you think, oh, why are they still left in there? This can simply mean that they were either out of the date range that you selected, or if they have a 0 value on them. So it's always worth making sure, just double checking exactly, making a note of the date that you wrote, the date that you selected within the bill run, and then comparing it against any charge sheets that are left over, and then also checking the value of those charge sheets. If you do have some charge sheets that should have been transferred, but the date was incorrect or there was a 0 value, you can just amend the value, and then do the bill run again, or you can just do the bill run again and just make sure that you select the date range, so to include all of those charge sheets that are left over. Similarly, if you need to check the batch sheets, all batch sheets that were transferred would have disappeared from this batch sheet section. Any that are left over are either out of the date range which you selected, they have a 0 value on them, or they were not completed and approved at the time that you did the bill run. Now you can see we had 5 batch sheets that were completed and approved, and you can see now that they have disappeared from the batch sheet section. The only ones that are left are the ones that we didn't complete and approve. Okay. The next thing you want to check is the reservations. So if we click on reservations, list view, and I'm going to show all my reservations. And you can see here that our reservations have now been invoiced here. Again, if they're not invoiced, they were either outside the date range or they were not confirmed. So again, if you think, oh no, that's not been invoiced, it's got status of provisional, then what you should do is you should confirm that reservation and then redo the bill run. Similarly, if it didn't pull through because of the date range that you selected, you can just redo the bill run and select the correct date range. If you want to check what you have actually put on each invoice, so exactly what you're going to bill the client, there is a report you can run which will break down each invoice by every item and put them in alphabetical order. If you go to Reports and then go to Invoice Reports, you'll see a report called Unprinted Invoice Detail Report, which is here. If we click on that, all we need to do is make sure that we select the correct site that we've done the bill run for. In this case, we've done it for all sites, so I'm going to leave that as all sites ticked. Then we simply just need to click on Preview. Quite a lot of invoices that we've got, so it's just going to take a minute to load. While this is loading, does anybody have any questions? I think we just had a hand pop up. I've had a hand pop up by an attendee, but I don't think that attendee is actually dialed into a phone. Can I ask that if you have raised your hand and you're actually on the phone, that you can just type your question to me, please? It doesn't seem like you're on the phone. Yeah, okay, we do have a question here. Yep, sure, no problem. We've got a question here just asking if I can go over the report again. No problem at all. Okay, that's fine. So, okay, I'll close that down. So to check what each invoice is going to show, if you go to Report, Invoice Report, Unprinted Invoice Detail Report. Okay, from here, you need to select the site which you've completed the bill run for. So click on Site here. If you've only completed the bill run for one of the sites, you untick the tick box at the top here and then just tick the site that you wish to view the unprinted invoices for. If, for instance, in our case, we've run the bill run for all sites, I'm going to leave that ticked at the top there, and then that will bill for all sites. That will show the invoice details for all sites. And then you just need to click on Preview. Okay, so just make sure that you select the correct site when running this report, so you don't. It may be easier if you've done it for multiple sites to run the unprinted invoice detail site at a time, so you're not overwhelmed by a huge report. That's completely your choice. I'm going to leave it that I'm going to run it for all sites, and then just click on Preview. You do not need to amend any of this information. Okay, and just click on Preview here. Just wait for that to run. Does that help? Does that answer your question on that report? Or is there anything else you want me to go over with that report? If you can just type, just let me know if you want me to go over that criteria again, or if you're okay with it. We just have a question. We've just been over that. That's fine. Okay. Now this report has loaded, you can see that you've got the unprinted invoice detail report on your screen. You can see the clients that are going to be billed. Obviously, this is quite a long report. So you can either print or email this out to go through, and this will break down each client's invoice So you can see here, although we've got multiple invoices for the same client, each invoice is different. So it's showing each item which is going to be displayed on that invoice. So this is a really good report that you can run after you've completed the bill run. Run it, print it off, email it to yourself, go through it, make sure that everything that you believe should be on that invoice for that client is on the invoice for that client. To go down a page, you can simply click on next page here, and you can go through a report page by page, client by client, to make sure that everything is correct on their invoice. Now, bear in mind, these invoices are in unprinted, so if there are any discrepancies on this report, you can go into the invoice that you have the discrepancy on by going to Invoices, Unprinted Invoices, finding the client that you have the discrepancy for and the invoice, and then simply highlight the invoice, click on Edit Invoice. Then you can make any changes. You think, oh, actually, no, that should be £60. You can click on the price, enter the new price, and then that'll amend the price. If they've got more than one item on the invoice, and it shouldn't be there, for example, say they didn't, this is duplicated charge and it shouldn't have been on there, you can click on the left-hand column here, and then which will highlight that line. Use the delete key on your keyboard, and that will take the item off the unprinted invoice, so that client will not be billed for. Okay, so while the invoices are in unprinted, you can make as many changes as you like to them to make sure that they are correct. So it is really important that you do run that report and then go through it and check each unprinted invoice before you actually go ahead and print them or email them to the clients. Do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions on what we covered just now regarding the post-bill run checks before we actually go on to issuing the invoices? So the user who actually raised their hand and does and can't actually speak, could you put your hand down for me, please? Brilliant, thank you. Did that answer your question with regards to the unprinted invoice detail report? And are there any other questions for me at this point? Okay, no questions. That's fine. Okay, so now that we have we've completed our post-bill run checks, and we have these invoices in unprinted, we're happy that they are going to be issued to their clients. What you need to do is you need to go into Invoices, Unprinted Invoices, click on Select All, and then hit Preview Invoice. Again, this warning message will come up if you don't have if the clients do not have the option to either print or email invoices. If you want to go in and amend those client accounts so that they can either have their invoices printed or emailed, you can do so before issuing the invoices by simply going to Accounts, clicking on the Financial Data tab, and entering so if we just go into this account, for example, going into the Financial Data account, and then you just need to make sure that they have an invoice method ticked here to either print or email invoices. Obviously, make sure if you do tick email invoices that you do have an email address entered here. Very important, otherwise the system will try and email it, but it can't actually go anywhere. Okay, so very important to have that. So if we close that down and go back to our preview pane here, you'll see that you've got a lot of invoices down the left-hand side. These are all of the unprinted invoices that you have for every single client. What you can do from here is you can, if you have any invoice text that you want to add or anything like that, you can click on invoice text, the option here, type, what you want to show on the invoice. So, for example, I'm putting payment. I'm putting payment to be made immediately. you need to make sure that if you do want it, you do have some invoice text that you want to display on the invoices, you do click display on the invoices, otherwise it won't be displayed. So you click on OK. And then that invoice text will be applied to every single invoice that you have within the preview pane here. Okay. So once you've made, you're happy that your invoice text is correct and you're ready to print or email those invoices out, you need to make sure that the invoice date is correct. So to do that, you'll see you've got the invoice date up here. It automatically defaults to today's date, but if you want to amend that, you can by simply clicking on the drop down here and then selecting the date that you actually want the invoices dated for. I'm going to select the 1st of October. So you can see here that the date on the invoice has changed to the 1st of October, and my invoice text is still there. Again, if you want to go through these invoices on the preview pane to make sure that they're okay, you can do that by clicking on the invoice on the left-hand preview pane here, and then you can click on the next page to give you the breakdown of what they are actually being billed for. Once you've done that and you're happy that you're ready to go, you can either click Automatic Invoice Production, print all invoices, or print an invoice individually, so you'd have to click print every time, or email invoice. Depending on how you issue your invoices, the Automatic Invoice Production will read the invoice method from the Financial Data tab of the account. So that's where you can tick the print invoices or email invoices. That's where that would come in useful. If a client does not have the option to either print or email invoices, and you click on Automatic Invoice Production, then the system will not know whether or not you want this printed or emailed, so that will not come out of the system. If you want to print and email, you can do that as well. So if you click on Automatic Invoice Production, the system will print and email a copy of the invoice. And so that the Automatic Invoice Production reads that information within the Financial Data tab, rather than you having to click on print for the correct invoices and email. If you want to just print all the invoices, you can do so by clicking on Print All Invoices. And if you want to print each invoice individually, so you have to click on print invoice each time the new one is loaded onto the screen, you can do that as well. Email invoice will just email one invoice at a time. So you would have to keep clicking that if you wanted to email all of your invoices out. For the purpose of this, I'm not, because we've obviously got quite a few in our preview pane, I'm not going to print these out, but depending on obviously how you want to issue them, you can print or email those as you wish. If there are some invoices that you're not happy with and you don't want to print or email them, then you can highlight the invoice and then click Exclude Invoice, and it will disappear from that preview pane. Okay. Has anybody got any questions for me? No? Okay. So one final point to remember, which is a very important point. All checks after the bill run and amendments need to be made while the invoices are in unprinted. As soon as you print or email those from here, then they move into printed invoices where you are unable to make any amendments. If they are incorrect, you will have to credit the invoice and then raise it correctly. So it is really important to go through those post-bill run checks in order to avoid having to credit and re-raise any invoices. That was really the CentreCharge 5 Best Bill Run Practice webinar. This video will be posted on YouTube, and we will let you know when that has been done. We do also have some training materials on the website for you, which will cover every aspect of the system as well as this bill run webinar. So if you wanted to download those, you can do so by simply going, if I show you where they are on the website, if you go to www.rjmetis.com, click on Login, and then down here under Quick Links, you'll see CentreCharge Guides. So you click on here, then you will have the CentreCharge 5 manuals available to download here. The manual which has the bill run information on is the CentreCharge 5 Billing Edition User Guide. So if you would like to download the instructions on how to complete the bill run, which links to this webinar, then you can do so from the website. But again, this video will be posted on YouTube for you to view it, or your colleagues to view at any time. Thank you for your time today. I've just seen a question just come in actually. So let me. Okay, that's not a question, it's a thank you. Brilliant, thank you very much. So that was the bill run, the best bill run practice webinar. If you have any questions regarding this or anything else, do feel free to contact our support team on support@rjmetis.com. Thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon.